Welcome back, everyone. We are just about halfway through the World Championship Series Day 1. We're headed into our 5th match of the day, where our first player is affectionately called Captain America. He is the only WCS champion, as he's a 2-time WCS champion, in fact. Please welcome CM Storm's Polt. Our next player is the only representative in France here in Poitiers. I'm sure all of you guys are excited for me to call him out. So without further ado, let's welcome Punchline ESC's FireCake. Will our French representative be able to keep his dream alive here in WCS, or will Captain America end his dream? It's time to find out. Players, shake hands. Sean, let's head back to you at the desk.
Thank you very much, Smix. A wonderful introduction, as always. And it's now time to begin Group C. We've completed with 2 groups, but now let's take a closer look at Group C, as we have 4 players looking to find themselves in the winner's match, hopefully. And of course, fortunately, the 2 losers will go down to face for elimination tomorrow. Polt, FireCake, Hydra, and Mana. And our first game is Polt versus FireCake. Before we talk about that matchup, let's find out more from Polt himself.
The group went, kind of went out like as I imagined. I mean, I expected I'm gonna go out with first place. Yeah, that's true, but I didn't expect that hard games. But well, the result all matters, so I'm fine. The thing I like the most of WCS 2015 is combining the Europe and America. So there's more matchups possible. I mean, in 2014 and 13 there were very similar match for every season going on. Like I played very similar plays again and again, but this season I mean, like I just played TL or Kalazur and Zim. I had that group, and 2 players were new, and it's really good for us fans and players too.
Even if Polt won both games 2-1, it's still a win, and that's the thing that matters here, Kalaris. And that's gonna, look at his hair, he's changed his hairstyle.
It's majestic, man.
It's quite a bit different, isn't it? Yeah, here is Polt, everybody, and he's our first contender in Group C. And let's talk a little bit about Polt. He is the only WCS champion in the top 16. He's the only 2-time WCS champion still in the top 16. And there's no other way to look at it. With 30 wins and 6 losses in his entire WCS career, that stands out.
Yeah.
This guy is challenging for the title.
And the thing is that all those losses have come very deep into WCS tournaments as well. So as much as he may feel at the moment that he's not exactly at a peak condition, he's still at a condition enough to rival easily anybody in this tournament.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about his condition, actually, because he hasn't had the best of starts to 2015. If you compare it to 2014 and then the even more successful 2013, he played in the Intellitree Masters earlier on this year, didn't really get out of group stages. He didn't qualify for the WCS Challenger the first time around. He looked shaky in Premier League, just winning 2-1. What do you think's happened to Polt here, Fenner? Is it just, does that happen to players, that you have good years and then bad ones?
It's hard to say I was going to say he's in a slump, but saying that.
Yeah, it's just not looking as dominant.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. It's hard to say. What do you think, Todd?
Wow, just like that.
Just like that, just pass it over.
I don't know, I was more interested in what, no, it's okay. You know, sometimes players go through tough times. I've already been a little bit over this, like, you know, with being a little bit worn out, playing too many tournaments. So it's also very hard to always, you know, stay consistent over the years. And Polt's definitely been one of those guys who has put out, you know, major results time after time. But everybody once in a while plays a little bit less good, I would say. And maybe it's been that time now for Polt, you know, for a little bit of time, but maybe he's going to come back stronger here this year and do better. This could be the time. Like, we haven't seen too much of him compared to sometimes last year when we would see him, like, you know, tournament after tournament delivering. So it's hard to say exactly how his condition is.
I mean, if you were to put these 2 players on, let's say, Hearthstone cards, and you had all their stats adding up, Polt wins in every department, right? Experience, achievements, raw skill.
I think
everything.
so, but I don't play Hearthstone. You would have to ask Artosis.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked James, actually.
I haven't played for a long time. Okay, so the thing is that I think Polt has been one of the most consistent players of StarCraft 2 history. Can anyone really rival that statement? He's one of the most consistent. He has always been up there. He won Super Tournament aeons ago, and he's been able to win 2 WCSs in the current its previous iteration. He's always relevant, hardly ever falls off. Just because he's had a little bit of a hard start to 2015, I still think he's going very far here. And
do you expect an A game up there on the stage?
A game.
Yeah?
One of the best cards in the deck.
I think as a card, it would be a 7-mana legendary.
I don't know what that means, unfortunately.
8 stats, and for a death rattle, he drops 2 Medivacs out onto the pitch.
I don't know what that means either.
He plays
Is 7-star good? Why not 10?
It's, I don't know, 10 is
You
really
can't-
costly.
no one can be perfect. No one can be perfect.
It's not perfect, it costs more. Why are we talking about Hearthstone?
I don't know. You guys went on the spiral. I just made a joke, but you kept on going with it. All right, thank you very much, guys, for your input on Polt. But now let's take a closer look at FireCake.
I love StarCraft 2 because it is a complex video game. It's not only about one skill like only hem shot or only understanding the game. You need the mechanics, you need to understand the game, but you also have to understand the player you are facing. And also it allows me personally to do my best in something, and it's very it's something I really enjoy. I would like to cheer for me in the round of 16 and above because I am an innovative player, and I will show to everybody how the Swarm will win against everybody.
The Swarm will win. Did he mean Swarm or did he mean Swarm host?
Todd. He's up against Polt, doesn't really play mech, so I think he meant the Swarm as the Zerg.
So let's go back. You know, we described Polt a little bit before. If FireCake was a Heroes of the Storm hero, which one would he be, Todd?
I think about it. Nazibo. He kind of looked like a Nazibo.
I know this less than Hearthstone. He had a pretty decent round of 32 performance. You know, 2-0 versus Puck, lost versus 4GG, but the thing that stands out the most is that game on Vaani Research Station, which took a long time, which you both did broadcast, if I remember correctly. And then he bounced back to win again convincingly 2-0 against Puck. But for me, I don't know if you think this, Fenner, this is the real test. This is FireCake breaking through the initial barrier into the professional scene. Yeah. And now you're on the big stage and you're playing one of StarCraft's best.
He's been coming up lately. He's had a lot more success recently. You saw the stats on there, 2-7. I don't think that represents his skill level as it is. The thing is about FireCake, there's a stat there that you wrote down. His average game length is 44 minutes. With the average game length of players in general being 20 minutes. So he goes for the longer game. The thing is, Polt's an aggressive player. He's not like 4GG with the 2-base aggression. He goes up to 3 bases, then he drops everywhere continually. That's what he's known for. So FireCake has to deal with all of that. He's not going to get up to his late game that he likes. He's never going to get to that point. Polt is not going to allow it.
Well, we can take a look at the map process here, or some also the map selection for the best of 3. And does this suggest long games, early games? I mean, Catalina is a very aggressive map. Vaani Research Station the second, and then Overgrowth the third.
I'm always surprised when Zerg players don't veto Catalina. Every time I see a Zerg player in Catalina, they get demolished by Reapers in the early game. They lose so many drones and just fall behind. So it's weird to see FireCake go for that one.
He's vetoed Secret Springs and Inferno Pools. You think they're, you know?
I think he should have left Inferno Pools open. It plays towards his style. It's a huge map, the biggest map in the map pool. Yeah, it's a bit weird with the island base there. It gets annoying. But I think it's definitely something where FireCake could shine on.
I think Feder disagrees with everything that Zerg's been doing this tournament.
As you said, you told him to get in the booth before, so come on, man. It's your time
so
to shine.
Is it clear to say that FireCake's the underdog, right?
By far.
Or wrong? Correct me, please.
By far.
I think so, but he played really well. Like, he really surprised me in the round of 32. Like, he came into the round of 32, I didn't know what to expect. Like, he's this guy who's been consistent with qualifying for it, but never really impressing in it. And now he did. He did a lot. Like, he won one game against 4GG. In his other games, he was very convincing as well. So, really not sure what to expect out of him. And he shows a lot of confidence too, like both on Twitter and real life, like the way he talks about his games.
It wasn't even just the Swarm Host as well. He actually impressed me using other units. I know everyone says FireCake, Swarm Host, but he's even really good with other units, and he has improved so much, as you mentioned, and he's really become one of the good Zergs in Europe.
It feels like this is the true test, though.
Yes.
At the end of the day, this is the true test. Now you're playing a very accomplished StarCraft 2 player on a big stage like the WCS, and we'll see if FireCake can make this happen. Is the French crowd going to be behind him all the way and hopefully push him to victory? We'll find out as the game's about to begin.
Thanks, Sean. Roddy, I think if I had to describe Polt as a Hearthstone card, I'd give him probably like maybe 5 mana legendary, but he's the guy that always wins from behind. So his ability, man, when he takes some damage, that's when he becomes really, really difficult to deal with. What would you say about FireCake?
I have no idea, man. I wanted to make a Heroes of the Storm joke on Todd's behalf, but actually, like Apollo was before, so I don't know. I don't really know where to go with that anymore, and I have to admit, I have knowledge of neither Heroes of the Storm or Hearthstone. It's all
good.
that passion.
All that passion. Well, yeah.
Somebody has to be playing StarCraft.
Okay, so we could just say he'd be more like a Ravager, just really, really annoying and hard to deal with in the early game. But
or an Adept.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't had trouble.
You know, like kind of annoying to deal with early game, and then you just squash him. And I think that's how Polt looks at this matchup.
Fair enough.
Of course, we could be completely wrong. Either way, this is going to be a pleasure for us. We always cast Polt, or always, like pretty much all the time. Like, how many tournaments haven't we casted Polt in last year?
I think we cast close to every single game that he played in a tournament last year. Actually.
Yes. On a certain point, like Polt didn't even greet us anymore because it was like we never left.
Sup? He's like, sup?
Yeah. He's just like, oh hey, oh yeah, actually I did travel to see you guys. Like, oh. Anyways, FireCake, that's the polar opposite for me and Nate. We almost never have the pleasure to cast him, but of course we have seen a couple of those infamous games. But I don't think that it's going to be a matter all that much. Before we're gonna go ahead, no, actually Nate, not before we're gonna go ahead. I know how keen you are on this. Go ahead and introduce the players.
All right, southeast position of Catalina for map number 1 here. We have the Blue Zerg player representing Punchline. He is FireCake.
Did you ever eat a FireCake?
I don't know what that would be. Maybe like some sort of like well-dressed strawberry shortcake or something.
Maybe there's way too many candles on the cake.
Ah, not quite edible. And our player in the left position, the red Terran representing Cooler Master Storm, he is Polt.
All right, so after, I actually want to bring this up before, but then I realized that we do have to do this thing that is called introducing the players and whatnot. But I agree with Mr. Fenner on the analysis desk. Every single time I see people not veto Catalina, someone is going to get destroyed on Catalina, and it's never the Terran. So unless FireCake has something very, very special and crazy planned on this map, I'm not exactly sure why we are watching a game on Catalina right now.
Yeah, I mean, FireCake's opening already shows that he's paying a bit of respect to the potential for Reapers to really mess you up at the beginning. Since he's not taking a gas, I don't believe he has any super aggressive intentions. Maybe he'll send a couple lings across the map to try to deny an expansion by Polt if it comes to it.
I think that's what's going on, because that was an earlier pull than we normally see. That was not a 14 pull or something. That was like 12, I believe, right? 12, maybe 13.
Yeah, it looked a bit close to a 13 from my perspective. But, you know, the thing is, when you talk about the maps and how we ended up on Catalina, I have to agree with Mr. Fenner on this one. It comes down to Polt throwing that veto on a Deadwing. He does not want to play vertical spawns against this player who can go Swarm Host, because you know I don't think that we're going to actually see Swarm Host out of FireCake in this series, but that's like one of the maps where it can work the most. And FireCake recently in his matches in like the Fragbite Masters, he had a couple of really good series against Protoss players, and unless he was up against a Terran who went mech, he didn't really stick to the Swarm Host too much. He had a 3-2 victory over Rain and only used Swarm Hosts in one of the games, pulling out a lot of other aggressive or weird styles. But I think FireCake might be underestimated by his opponents if everyone assumes he's just going to play Swarm Hosts.
That's true. Like James pointed out as well, he's not the player that can only play Swarm Host. In the end, it seemed like FireCake has opened up very normal, so maybe that was indeed because of that double Rex action Reaper that we've seen for a while, that was popular for like 2 or 3 weeks and now kind of fell out of flavor. It's like every now and then you have the flavor of the month in a certain matchup, and then everybody's like, yeah, let's do this build. And then like after a month, it's just like, yeah, you know, like it's not that hot anymore.
Yeah, so Polt's going to come up with a Reaper, and he wants to do a bit of damage. Now, he shouldn't really be able to accomplish much since this opening gives very fast access to 2 Queens, which is generally enough to push a Reaper back. It's willing to trade out a Ling or 2. Losing a drone would suck, okay. Manages to get the Spore Crawler morphing there, and no harm, no foul. FireCake cuts his economy just a tiny bit to ensure that he won't take damage from the Reapers.
It is pretty bizarre though, that he's doing this gasless because, you know, the crazy Reaper build has been popular for a little bit. If he would have actually been gasless against a double Rex Reaper opening, he would have been dead, right?
He's still in a weird spot because he didn't open speed. Since the 3 Reapers, since Polt, and as long as he keeps tabs on this and realizes, like, hey, you didn't take any gas, he doesn't need to send his Reapers home ever. He can rally his Hellions straight out, and you just trade those hit points on the Reapers. Eventually, the Queen's going to be so weak that the Hellions roll up, and you actually just kill him up front.
And what I like as well is that there is double command center going up behind this, because he knows that there is nothing to worry about. Like, a gasless Zerg is not going to show up with anything that you don't see coming miles and miles away. So he's just like, all right, I'm going to throw up double command center. And at the same time, like you said, these Reapers normally around the 6-minute mark latest, maybe 6:05, you want to go home. Right now, it's not closing time, Nate.
No, it's very important since oftentimes you want to get home by 6 minutes because 6:10 is usually around when a lot of these speed builds finish, when they're not like the crazy fast ones like Life might use. So the Reapers run in, he wants to try to grab a couple drones.
Almost lost one.
Yeah, it gets close, but we have a pretty quick Roach Horn follow-up, and FireCake might just be saying to himself, I want to go for just a very, very fast Roach counter push, make Polt think that I'm just droning up on 2 bases and going to play with a late third. However, because Polt's going for 3 command centers, this could get a little bit dicey for him.
Yeah, but Polt is always a player who's playing so safe as well. It's not like just because he's going 3 command centers, he's going to throw up 2 E-base or before even Rex.
He'll often even throw in a Marauder as well. We kind of talk about this. Polt coined it.
Marauder,
yeah. He's got his safety, his anchor Marauder to hold down the defense.
It's his Achilles heel.
Yeah. You can see that the Reaper's doing a really good job of trading, and because he's so active up front, he actually sees the Roach Horn, and because of this, he decides to go into Banshee. And I really like this choice, since even without Cloak, just getting Banshees completely shuts down most Roach play, since, you just get so many extra volleys on them, and it kind of puts a timer on the Zerg. Since 3 command centers, you can afford to lose a lot of SCVs, even if they push through the Banshee.
He's making 6-7 more drones now. He's also throwing down the Bailing Nest, but also 2 Evolution Chambers, and unless these Evolution Chambers are the fake of the century, FireCake is actually just going to play this game out, which, with the setup that he has, especially if he wants to play Roach, maybe Roach Hydra even? No, he's making a Bailing Nest. I don't really understand how he's going to survive the drop phase of this game. And there we do see, by the way, Rex number 2 and 3 going down before eBay number 1 and 2, which just makes sense. Polt is not a guy that takes unnecessary risk. He's going to get his trademark Viking as well. I'd be so surprised if FireCake is just going to try to sing this one out all the way to the end. And
it's looking like he wants to play it straight up, to be honest. From everything that I'm seeing, this looks like a very, very straight up play so far from FireCake. He's going to lose a couple drones here now to the Reapers as Polt runs in, doing a pretty solid job of getting out with the rest of them. And I like that you pointed out that Polt goes for the extra barracks, so the drop phase of this game can actually start a bit faster. These Reapers were still here, but not targeted down. And the most crucial part about this is that we kind of talk about Polt in this regard almost every single time that we cast him, and he's always willing to delay his upgrades to make sure he can get 3 command centers and his production going. And sometimes Polt does this with just 2 barracks, but usually his weakness is the later upgrades, which is nice for FireCake in trades, but if Polt's multitasking, wrecks him, then that's a whole other story altogether.
And this is Catalina, man. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to defend.
He's got the worst spawn as well for Catalina.
Yeah, how are you supposed to defend on all occasions against drops if you don't have any Mutalisk out? Like, that seems almost impossible to me, but maybe FireCake can make the impossible happen. Meanwhile, this Viking does not get the kill on that Overlord. That's kind of nice, because now he can actually just go back to spreading Overlords again, which is definitely what I would recommend him to do, because once more, it's Catalina. And
all those Roaches out of position. Hellion's going to run by. It's only 2 Hellions, so he's not going to one-shot the drones as easily. Tries to make an Evo Chamber block, but misses it. And actually he's really not getting too much here. The drones are going to pull back. He looks like he's maybe killed 4 or 5 tops.
Yeah, Reapers will be annoying, maybe get another kill in the main base. But overall, I think FireCake is fine over here. I'm just still much more worried about how he's going to be able to deal with, let's say, with the phase-in game when we have 4 to 6 medevacts that are full of bio units, because this is a very, very, very difficult map to defend. If you guys wonder, like, well, I don't really play a whole lot of StarCraft, why is it so difficult? Why do you keep saying that? It's because there's so much dead airspace around the bases, and there are so many directions that these medevacs can fly into the main that it's almost impossible to always see them coming.
It's really funny to see a slow lane counterattack from FireCake. His baneling speed is now on the way. It's actually a pretty good opportunity. If he had speed, then I think he could have gotten quite a bit more done with that, since the bio had to stim over it and run up to help. For the positions that FireCake has, his creep spread is really, really good. Polt has to walk around the center of the map if he wants to attack the 4th base of the Zerg. The 3rd is pretty locked down, and the only thing that's really missing in this game right here is a Spire. So it seems that FireCake wants to play a style where he just overwhelms Polt's army in the front and takes a big engagement that allows him to swing for a counterplay to win the game. Because without Mutalisks, as you said, a long game shouldn't favor FireCake.
And creep spread is definitely key to whatever FireCake has in mind. You know, the bases are kind of close to each other, and I think that Polt might eventually, if he would end up losing a couple of units, he might regret taking his 3rd where he took it.
Yeah, he's a very, very forward 3rd base.
Which I don't think was necessary for him. Like, you know, maybe it will work out. And
it makes it harder to counterattack.
If he stabilizes, then it's great, because then this is his staging ground already, and he can just slowly but steady move forward and rally units even closer to FireCake, his side of the map. But if he would overextend one time and lose a bunch of Marines, then if 20 Zerglings morph into Banelings, then it could get very dicey for him.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that the style from Polt we'll see him continue to use is just this very, very big 3-base push. And because the Overlord's blocking the 4th base, FireCake knows he just needs to set up and max out on 4 bases and just defend, defend, defend. And Polt trying to push this creep spread back. Baneling speed is done, so he actually pushes him away.
That one Widowmine though, Nate, got quite a few Banelings over there for its effort. But what I do really like there from FireCake is that the moment he takes a fight that he knows that Polt is going to retreat from, he immediately brings Queens forward and drops a couple of creep tumors, and that is truly the only way I think he's going to be able to win this game. That is if his creep spread truly takes off. But this first drop already pretty successful, getting an Overlord, getting a Spore, I believe, and forcing units out of position, and Polt will keep doing this.
Yep, Polt steps up, snipes a couple of creep tumors. Very, very important, as that creep spread has been completely shut down on the west side of the map, leading straight to that 3rd base. FireCake comes up once again. He knocks it back, but as long as these Widow Mines are here, Polt has a position he can fall back onto. Now the Mutalisks are going to come into play, and he's got about 1,100 gas he could work with. So how many mutas will he start? Just 6 at the moment.
I'm
Gets
not sure.
+1. Maybe he needs to wait for a couple of larvae to pop before he actually gets more. He's still producing Zerglings too.
I mean, the only thing that FireCake has is pretty damn good upgrades. Like, he's even on upgrades with the Terran. I don't think this is a game where Polt will fire up 3-3 immediately, or maybe he will by the time the 2-2 is done. But it's nice for Zerg to be even or even a little bit ahead in upgrades, which he currently is. But like you mentioned, he has to renew the creep spread on the west side. Otherwise, I don't see how he's supposed to attack against Polt.
Yeah, Polt intends from this way that he set himself up to win this game on 3 bases. FireCake just needs a couple of good trades, runs the Banelings in from behind. He actually pushes this army back, and he could use the Lings to bait the Widowmine shots onto the medevacs. He does, so he buys more space. If FireCake could just get some drones on that 4th, I think he has more than enough income to just continue to accept wave after wave of Polt. And in that position, because Polt does not have a 4th command center coming in, once his main base mines out, FireCake can actually start to build a lot of momentum to attack Polt.
It's going to try to renew some of that creep over there, but that's not going to work for now. Good Widowmine shot there for Polt. Gets a couple of Banelings and a lot of Zerglings for his effort. And of course, make sure that this creep is not being renewed. You know, eventually, I guess Polt could, if it, hey, he's building a 4th command center, by the way. It's very late, but he's building one. He could also fly over his main towards, the 7 o'clock position where he's basically standing right now.
Yeah, I mean, getting the 4th command center is definitely nice for Polt, because you want to have the 4th base as a planetary. You don't want to float over an orbital that a couple of Zerglings can deny and completely cut off your income. So Polt has made pretty much all the right moves in this game. FireCake has been able to defend, but it's been a pretty weird job so far.
I didn't even see that yet. You set a position with this fire? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a bit forward, to say the least.
Hey man, shoot at me.
And I guess it's hard to drop it, right?
Hey, good point. It's like, I'm not important at all.
Yeah, so the thing is, FireCake wants to use these multiple points that he can attack a Polt pushing into his 3rd base. And, in theory, it's nice, but FireCake just has not been able to get enough units out on the map to max. He's got 1,600 minerals in the bank. He's going to try to get a surround on this army. The Widowmine's not actually hitting the Baneling, so he steps up. He should be able to pick off the Thor here. This army pulls the Thor back with the medevac, so Polt keeping that Thor alive allows him to pick off majority of the Mutalisks. This Terran army dies, but the next wave is already coming in.
Yep, and no creep over here, so it's going to be very hard for Banelings to get the same connections.
There's no Banelings left. He's starting up 6 right now, but, even with the even upgrades, dealing with this force, with so many medevacs healing it, will be quite difficult.
Just a couple of really good engagements there for Polt. Of course, gets a couple of great hits on his Widow Mines as well, but slowly but steady has just pushed FireCake back on this side of the map. FireCake is going to try to save this hatch. Well, it's actually too late to save it, so he realizes he doesn't have to take an awkward fight uphill anymore either, because there's nothing to protect over here other than maybe soon this Spire.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue in this game, FireCake could not get the workers on that 4th base. He's going to surround this Terran army once again. He should be able to clean it up. He's going to go for the medevacs as well, but already on the minimap, another wave of red is pushing down, and as long as the Terrans ahead in supply against Zerg, they're in a happy place. Polt floated over the 4th command center. That Overlord's still blocking it, so the income is denied for now, but I really feel that killing those drones on the 3rd base was a huge victory for Polt, and maybe if he denies that 4th a bit longer, then I don't think that there's much of an opportunity here for FireCake to have extra income compared to Polt.
Like, I guess the small issue with FireCake's build was that the Muda number was never very high for the phase in the game that we were in. And even if he pushed Polt back, he was never actually able to kill all of the medevacs. Like, whenever you take out the medevacs or you make it sure that the Terran stays on a very low amount, like 2 to 4, that makes it very hard for Polt to always make sure that his reinforcements are enough to stabilize. But every single fight, I felt like the medevacs survived. So he's always flying around with like 7 or 8 or 9 medevacs, and even if he just loses the Marines, well, he can just reproduce them, and he doesn't have to worry about being low on medevacs and stuff.
Yeah, FireCake is going to try and make a play with these Mutalisks, but as you said, a very low count. No missile turret at this 3rd base, though, so FireCake's actually going to pick up a good number of SCVs. He's trying to squeeze out a few more drones. He's only at 62. He's actually managed to getting in here in the main base on top of some of this production and more SCVs.
Yeah, I really like this for FireCake. Like, over time, finally, the Muda count has reached the number where it's scary enough for Polt that he suddenly has to worry about this. And now Polt is like, well, hey, I actually didn't build any missile turrets because you were relying on roaches, zerglings, and banelings, and then eventually a few Mutalisks, but that was never really an urge for me to get missile turrets, and now suddenly Polt is maybe in a little bit of a confusing spot. Like, okay, I shouldn't let this go on much longer because this is going to be annoying for me as well.
Yeah, FireCake starting up some swarm hosts. This feels like a really big desperation play since he knows he's very low on income, but Polt going up now to 5 bases. I think he's built an unstoppable amount of momentum. He has the 3-3 upgrades. FireCake cannot get his own 3-3. He cannot get adrenal glands, and I think Polt's next push up here should be enough to stop him. Even with 27 banelings, maybe he'll push the army back a little bit, but he needs to get all the swarm hosts in position.
All the drones as well, and one of the swarm hosts does get picked off. The Mutalisk were busy chasing a medevac on the left top or right top side of the map. Eventually they picked it off, and now they're going to go work on this SCV line again. But Polt is richer, like you said. He has secured his own 4th base. Don't you think that FireCake should have taken his 4th or like reproduce his 4th, which used to be his 3rd, on the right side of the map, where he now has like basically his 5th base? That made a lot more sense.
Yeah, the creep spread would defend it a lot better. Rebuilding the hatchery on the southwest side was just way too vulnerable. And for the first time, FireCake is quite close to maxing out. If these swarm hosts, I mean, I guess the Mutalisk attack, counterattack, bought him some time, but it's still very, very difficult to stop a full Terran force like this. I mean, a lot of people say swarm hosts are quite good. I don't know if they're good enough to completely stop a big push from this army. He needs to use the banelings as soon as Polt steps on creep.
He has 27 of them, and I would say that's a number that if you get the connections that you're looking for...
There's not a lot of mines left. Polt is actually stepping very deep.
Head over heels in creep.
Yeah, he's very deep in the creep. The Zerglings and Banelings are going to come from both directions. The Thor's tucked into the center, now hitting those Mutalisks, but the majority of the Marines are actually being cleaned up for this force, and the swarm hosts are going to move in and pick off the Thors. FireCake takes a tremendous amount of Polt's army out.
Wow, that was an amazing fight for FireCake, and even a couple of the Banelings did connect with the Thors. Good save on that Thor, of course, by Polt. That would have also otherwise died against the Locust, but I think Polt's going to have to go back, Nate. I think he has overstepped his boundaries a little bit for now.
I mean, Polt should have recognized that army moving to the left side. That bought an incredible amount of extra surface area for Tim to engage against Polt's army. He wasn't able to just split in one direction. He kind of had to fight in a clump. This gives FireCake time to get more Banelings. It's given him enough time for that right side base to complete. I will say, Polt just needs to keep dropping mules, and we see FireCake also getting pathogen glands to move into infestors.
That's kind of interesting. I mean, like, of course...
I mean, if you lock him down against the Locusts have an extremely high damage output.
I mean, it's always been the dream for Zerg. Like, right, you land a couple of fungals and then Banelings roll in. That's something we saw at the very, very, very first IEM tournament ever, because Terrans back then didn't know how to split. So, you know, one fungal landed and then 10 Banelings rolled in, and like all the Marines died, and it was like, oh my god, Zerg's so good. That was 5 years ago. But of course, in theory, it still works like that. Just now it's a little harder to land the fungals. But Polt has shown before, and you know, even in that last fight, that he sometimes gets a little overeager. Like, he was very deep into creep.
Yeah, that was about as reckless of an engagement Polt could have taken, and he's still ahead, in my opinion, in this game. But he's been placed into a position now where pushing that southeast base is borderline impossible. And I think Polt also hasn't really taken too many new refineries, so I guess he has a lot of gas banked up. But he needs to be very careful in this position because replacing these forces is going to slowly become more and more difficult as this army becomes more cost-effective for FireCake.
Those mines are scary, by the way.
Yeah, this is a very tricky spot. Okay, this Swarm Host gets picked off, but like if you move into this with the Locusts and you get fungal with these Banelings, this opens up a big opportunity for FireCake. He's going to try to move a big drop on the right side. Some of these spreading out Overlords are actually going to run into the Medivacs, but how much can he afford to pull away? Most of his Banelings, now it's just Infestors and Swarm Hosts, which actually should be enough to defend.
I mean, this is Catalina, and this is why Catalina is hard. It has taken a while, but I think now Polt is doing it very well. This makes it so difficult for FireCake to split up his army properly. It seems like so far he's doing it, though. A little reckless with his Banelings. A couple of them did blow up on Marauders, but other than that, he's defending on both locations, and that is, I would almost say, remarkable already, because it's not easy to split your army up properly in this phase in the game.
Yeah, FireCake really needs to secure the rest of the gases on that old 4th base and his new base on the right side of the map.
Oh man, that's a good fungo. He gets 3 Medivacs and a Tor.
Yeah, this is quite nice. Polt does not have a crazy high mineral bank, so if he has to invest a lot of resources in rebuilding those Medivacs, that cuts down in each wave of Marines, and of course Polt is still building Marauders, which aren't particularly effective, and of course the other great thing about these Swarm Hosts. Oh yeah, didn't hit drones, but...
Man, dodging bullets.
Those Swarm Hosts were true bros.
Yes.
Those Locusts, man.
It's like, I don't have long to go anyway.
He's like,
brother.
I don't cost anything, let me take the bullet.
It's not just that, it's like, I'm already sick. I sacrificed myself.
Yeah, so now FireCake gets away with drones out, and I think if he gets away with this, if he can just hold on for a bit longer, this gives him the saturation that he needs to actually start to make a game of this again, as Polt's going to make another big push on the right side. But the Swarm Hosts are not in position. That last wave of Locust wasn't heading in the right direction.
It's kind of frustrating for FireCake that he doesn't have any creep over here on the high ground. Makes it a little bit harder for those Banelings to get the Dream connections that they are looking for. Of course, the Fungal Dream is still very alive, but Polt making it very hard. He's aware of the Infestors, he's aware of the threat. FireCake is going to try to go for it as soon as the hatchery has died with a little bit of help of the Brootlings, but man, 6 splits there by Polt.
Yeah, Polt just has too much army here, and the Swarm Host is not in position to assist in this battle whatsoever. The Mutalisks are going to be picked off by Polt. A couple of Infested Terrans are thrown down, but these Infestors should also not be able to escape. And maybe that's doable with the Swarm Host to help cut off some of the forces, but now the Locust waves arrive, and the Mutalisks get killed by the Widow Mines.
Yeah, that is going to be it. 180 supply right now for Polt against 105 for FireCake. He has a single Spore Crawler in the main, but that's obviously not going to protect his main base from being absolutely ravaged by these Marines and these Marauders. He's morphing 12 Banelings. That is pretty much his last, how would you say that, Nate?
His last breath, I don't know, his last hurrah.
Yeah.
What have you. This is his final cheer in this game, as Polt is actually getting a fusion core since, well, I mean, why not finish the game with battle cruisers if you can, I guess. If FireCake's going to stay in this game that long, might as well.
Well, I'm not sure if we're ever going to see Yamato Cannon in this game.
No, he's going to get Ravens first. Okay, won't rush straight for those battle cruisers, but Polt's just cleaning everything else up that FireCake has on the map. He's trying to turtle on top of these Swarm Hosts, but the bio is way too mobile. It's not like re-rallying Swarm Hosts are going to save you at this point in the game. Not when Polt has like 6 bases.
No, and you have 0 mining bases. Like, Polt is doing this very well. He's just slowly but steady picking everything apart. Everywhere where the Locusts not are, that's where Polt is. But what a beautiful fight on the right side of the map, man. Like, I wasn't sure at first about it, and then I saw like, okay, there's no creep on the high ground. That's kind of annoying. But then Polt just spread out his units perfectly.
FireCake was not able to get the fungals before Polt started to pre-split, and that really hurt him because in this, in that scenario, he also maybe needed the Swarm Host there too. And he gets one good fungal on these Marines. He's gonna clean these up, but Polt's building battle cruisers.
I hope this Spire dies, by the way.
He's like, I'll stand defending this final building until the last moments of this game. Oh.
Like, my OCD just wants this Spire to die for anyone to ever build a Spire.
But now Polt could potentially finish this game by just marching 3 BCs across the map. He's like, what do you have to say about this, good sir?
I think he's just going to try to muster through one more time. Polt is also a guy that in general has no time to waste, and he loves to be aggressive. He doesn't really sit back.
Yeah, I don't think Polt's going to showboat just to beat FireCake with battle cruisers.
No.
I don't know if they have that kind of history, you know?
And not just that. I mean, I think that Polt has quite a few achievements already unlocked when it comes to actually winning tournaments in every single continent around the world. at least.
Yeah.
Pretty
I think Polt's won a couple tournament games with BCs. I wouldn't be surprised. He's like, nah, I already crossed this one off the list.
Yes.
He's like, but you're going to defend that Spire with to your last breath.
This is almost like a campaign mission right now, man. Like, keep the Spire alive, every direction.
Yeah,
Good
well,
luck.
unfortunately,
Good luck, Commander.
that Spire's not going to like transform into like Kerrigan's Chrysalis or something, and like suddenly you pop out with like the Doom Psionic Storm and the charge through all the Marines to insta-kill him. GG. Polt takes game number 1 in this series against FireCake after a pretty solid performance.
The Protoss of me wanted to cast Photon Overcharge on that Spire, because that's the way it was positioned, you know? It's just like, could shoot in all directions. It's like...
Just summons the Leviathan, which is like spawning a bunch of Mutalisks and Broodlords. Like, well, okay, maybe he could take it back now. He's got a 60 supply unit.
Reinforcements have arrived. It's just like suddenly 7 Ultras crash out of the sky. You're like, yeah, that's why I was holding on to my Spire.
Well, I mean, he said he wanted to win with the Swarm, right?
Overall, that was a really good game, though, before the final 2 minutes where it got a little bit silly and it was obvious that Polt was going to win. But I think FireCake did a really good job and hanging in there on a very difficult map for Zerg against a world-class Terran player that Polt is. Polt got a little reckless. He was ahead, but then he almost overextended or overstepped his boundaries when he went head over heels into creep. But in the end, you know, he survived. He did all right. He did a very good job. As soon as Polt unlocked that 4th base, he also got his 5th and his 6th base, just in case. And he was shutting down bases of FireCake on the other side of the map.
Yeah, in my opinion, the most important things to note looking at this game is that if FireCake is able to find an opportunity to take the gases on his 4th base, he was floating a significant amount of minerals. And it's not to say it's like, oh, well, you know, is his macro bad? It's like, no, he was trying to get out gas units. So everything that he needed to stop that army, he was going for. Well, the Swarm hosts, okay, are going to cost gas. They were sort of like a last-ditch type of effort. But all the Banelings that you need to stop those Marines, Banelings are incredibly expensive to max out on, as well as looking at the Mutalisk count, which you mentioned that he never got to a crazy high amount. 3 base, you know, once you have the 4th base, it's nice. But FireCake, at no point in that game, had more than a handful of drones, like until his 3rd base got killed and he transferred them all over. Yeah. But at that point, the game is mostly lost. Like, it's all about killing the 4th for the Terran. But if your 3rd base is placed so close to them, it's a different story. However, next map, I think, definitely favors that kind of style, or at least Zerg play in general, much better than Catalina.
Yeah, I did like the way that FireCake approached the match, and it definitely got a little bit close. And it's safe to say that Polt got a tiny bit fortunate a couple of times with some great Widowmine hits. Otherwise, it could have been different. A couple of those mine hits, you know, they took down 7, 8, 9 Banelings, and of course, you know, that goes 2 ways. You can also look at it saying that like FireCake should have been more cautious about engaging those mines, or should have spread out his Banelings a little bit better before running them all in together. But still, you know, if that backfires and instead they shoot at that single Zergling that's near the Marines, then we could have been looking at a different game. So overall, I think FireCake can be reasonably satisfied with that game. That was probably the most difficult map that he was going to be playing on as well. So Vaani Research Station should be better for him.
Yeah, very impressed that he played as straight up as he did. No shenanigans whatsoever from the French Zerg player as he finds himself down 0-1 in this best of 3 for the first series he's playing here in the World Championship Series round of 16. We're loaded into Vaani Research Station for game number 2. And in the top position, we have your French Zerg player representing Team Punchline. He's FireCake.
And over here on the south side of Vaani Research Station, we have the 2-time WCS America champion. Right now, he wants to get his first Premier League title. It is Polt.
And it's very interesting to think about a Zerg player trying to use Swarm Host against Terran, because Catalina in general, from most Zerg players that I've spoken to, say they don't like Swarm Hosts on that map, period. It's just too wide open. It's very easy to abuse the positioning.
Yeah. And there's too many cliffs as well, which is annoying for Locust because they have to go up a ramp, down a ramp, around the corner.
And I feel that heavily attributed to his Swarm Hosts not being in a good position to help in that top right fight. Because if you have the wave of Locusts come in, it really helps push those forces back towards the right side. A very fast spawning pool from FireCake.
12 pool. I think it's the same as on Catalina, mate. I think he 12 put on Catalina as well. Maybe that was 13.
He just wants the fastest queen possible to be able to defend against any type of aggression.
There was also a theory for a while that if you open up with a 12 pool and you don't make a single Zergling, but because you get the queen so much quicker, you get more larvae, that it's like not that much worse. Obviously, that theory got proven wrong later on, but I remember that was a thing for a while where people was like, well, you can open up like that, but if you don't make a single Zergling, you just make a queen immediately and then you only drone up. It's not that much worse for your economy, that's for sure.
Yeah, very interesting that he takes this approach to the game. And, you know, FireCake playing as straight up as he has against a player like Polt, probably the strongest bio playing Terran competing in this tournament, because you look at the games that he played against 4GG and Happy in the round of 32, and even the games that he ended up playing against Happy in his Fragbite group, where we had some very, very long Swarm Host versus mech games. Polt is just not the kind of player that plays mech. It's not something that he's done very much so in a long time. I think the last time he did it, I wasn't there for the tournament. It might have been San Jose, but he like got completely wrecked by it, unless I'm thinking of another Terran.
Jadon cross map, right?
Yeah, and he got, I mean, Polt's mech like was not successful at all.
Yeah, I think I remember the game. I mean, it was like, he had a little bit of bio in the mix as well. It was like that wing cross map with Tors and slow Marines, I believe, and Hellbats. But yeah, you're right. Everybody was like, what, Polt, mech?
It's not really your thing, Polt. You're really good at, you know, your drops and sniping Nexi, sniping hatcheries, but not a big mech guy. Not since, I'd say, the mid-phase of Wings of Liberty. But the Reaper's going to run up now, and he sees, he's like, wow, you have a pretty fast queen. He's trying to pick up a drone, and he will get one, but the Reaper's actually, is he going to kill it?
Drones. He could have killed it, and he kills it.
I don't think that's worth it. No. You lose the Reaper, and that completely shuts down any aggressive potential for the next Reaper, since there's now 2 queens, and Polt is actually still going to build a 3rd Reaper.
I think it goes for any race whenever, like, you never want to lose a worker, but if I lose a single pro, but I kill the Reaper immediately, I'm always satisfied.
Yeah, it's a very, very disheartening feeling when you're playing against Zerg. But, you know, Polt was the greedy boy who tried to jump on top of that drone, and he paid the price.
Well, I know all about being greedy, Nate.
Yeah, I tell you, I just be honest. I play Terran, man. There's few things that feel worse than losing your Reaper after you run. You're like, oh, snipe the drone, back away, and then you die. It's like, no, not cool.
No, and of course, you know, that goes all the way back. Sometimes not even that it's like such a disaster that you lose a Reaper. It's more that you lost a unit that you know you're not supposed to lose, because it's faster than anything that the other 2 races have in this phase in the game. So you know it's your own fault that you lost the Reaper as well. He gets a creep to him, that's kind of nice. Or did he cancel it? No, he canceled it, right?
He's got a much faster Roach Horn this game than the last one, it seems. He's also straight up now onto his 2 gases. It seemed like all of this came about 30 seconds later on the last map for FireCake. I don't know that this means he wants to make a big push, but it seems he's still concerned about the potential for a Hellion Reaper push or any type of Hellion Reaper Banshee follow-up, since he did build Spores as well the last game.
I mean, we did, of course, see that game earlier today where I think 4G it was, just ran up a bunch of Hellions into the main base of TLO and was relatively successful with it, forced TLO to make some sort of a counterattack that I don't think he normally wanted to make, and in the end it didn't go all that well, so FireCake wants to make sure that that doesn't happen to him.
Yeah, you know, it seems like I'm trying to look for where FireCake is trying to make an all-in out of any of these plays, but it seems he just wants to play a slightly overly safe early game and then just cruise into the mid-late game as fast as he can. Like, he might not even build more than these 3 roaches, maybe get a 4th or 5th. He's a bit supply blocked, so he can't start anymore right now.
He just made 5 roaches as well on Catalina. He didn't make any more than that. And I don't think he wants to make a whole lot more than that. That's another Reaper.
Okay. Very nice that he comes over. I was going to say, if that drone just waltzes up to that 3rd base and starts a hatchery, that's a pretty big mistake out of Polt. But yeah, he's just kind of like losing some units straight up. And we do have a pause here from FireCake. Hopefully everything is all right. Don't want to try to talk too much detail about anything as in case any headsets come off, Roddy.
No, we wouldn't want to do that. But overall, good series so far, I think. And I think this game has a lot of potential. Well, no headsets are off. But yeah, I think he's doing pretty much the exact same thing as he did in the previous series. So I don't think he wants to be too aggressive. And I don't really think it's very wise either with... Actually, I was worried. We didn't see the players anymore. I was like, we're not going to talk about any units. But it seems like FireCake is good to go. Polt is good to go as well. So we can just go ahead and continue game number 2 of, I want to say the 3rd best of 3 of the day, but it's actually the 5th best of 3 of the day. We are more than halfway through.
Cruising through, Roddy.
It's going to be a really busy and intense weekend of StarCraft 2. Like, today is a pretty long day, Nate. We already had 4 best of 3s. Of course, we showed up early over here as we went through some rehearsals and stuff. Tomorrow, I believe we have like 12 series or something like that. And even the final day, I think we have 6 best of 5s and a best of 7. I don't think it's possible to ever be sick of StarCraft, but I think on Sunday night, Nate, we're gonna talk about still StarCraft. But,
yeah, well, this.
still.
I mean, hey, it's this is a cool format in that at the very least, of all the StarCraft that you guys get to see, this is pretty much the first time that you get all these types of players rounded up in one tournament. So you like matchups like this, FireCake versus Polt. It's not something I don't think has ever actually happened, especially not LAN.
Actually, it happened once in a Home Circuit Cup qualifier, Polt 1-3-0. I'm sorry to be that guy.
Qualifier in ancient history.
Well, Home Circuit Cup number 8.
Offline.
Okay, you're right. No, definitely not offline.
All right. Well, it seems that whatever was plaguing him is still a bit of an issue.
FireCake is not a happy cake right now.
No, I mean, when you consider what's on the line, if you are FireCake, it's definitely a situation where you don't want to leave anything to chance because you have some sort of small technical issue. You're like, oh, I could just breeze over it, but you don't want to.
It's like if you play Protoss, like, my select army hotkey is not working. I'm just gonna try to play.
And it's like, oh, my A
never
key,
say that.
my attack key isn't working. This just really complicates things for me when I play Protoss.
Man, like sometimes I sit down on somebody else's setup, and then if F2 is not working, I'm just like,
there's no F2.
Can't play. Can't play. I need to select my army one way or the other. Anyways, guys, of course, it's very hard for us to talk about this match right now as the players are having, or at least FireCake is having a few issues. So we can update you guys about what happened earlier today as Group A and Group B, both the winner match or, the opening matches have been played. We only played 2 matches of every group so far, so tomorrow we're going to open things up with probably the winners match, and after that we're going to go losers match and then deciders match for every single group, so we'll go through it all. But yeah, it's been fun so far. Snooders in the winner match. After a very intense series against Maxed, we just saw Showtime advance to the winners match as well in Group B over Pig. And then of course we had some Group A action.
Yeah, we're gonna have, it's gonna end up with Cyril playing off against 4GG. I think a pretty cool TvZ series, not one
that's going to be a great one, I think.
Not one I've seen much of, but it looks like everything is just about ready to go here as the game has resumed between FireCake and Polt.
I see Hellions. I see them driving.
Just backing off. Would you like to cast the game like this from the stage, as if we were audience members?
I think I could do that. And then I close my eyes, Nate.
I'm not sure if I'm ready.
I'm ready. All right, so 6-3 supply for FireCake as he throws down both Evolution Chambers and 2 more Spores as well. I'm not sure if he scouted the starport, but I guess he's just expecting it. Some of these Hellions are already a little bit beat up.
Let's look at the difference between this map and the last one. There's a Spore Crawler up front, but the big thing here is that Polt is actually getting Cloak for his Banshee, which the counter is already up for FireCake.
He's got it.
Polt was not able to gain entrance to throw away his Hellions and Reapers for any drones because this map just doesn't allow for it. You have a very small entrance into the choke. So FireCake has a little bit less to worry about, and Polt has invested a little bit more into his aggression, and I don't think that it's going to pay off in any big way for him since the lair should be done in time to handle this once the Banshee's back off of the mineral line.
But I'm a little bit worried about the fact that, actually no, we have 4 Spore Crawlers. Okay, never mind. I thought we only had 2 and that both of them were in the front. Man, he's very, very serious about his Spores.
Yeah, I mean, the Banshees can still do a lot of damage in the natural due to the distance between the extractors, but it's not the end of the world. The lair is very close to completing.
And I'm so happy to see Creep actually connecting these bases. Man, he's getting so many free hits off. Look at all that unanswered damage from these queens. Polt can possibly be happy about that.
That's quite sloppy because if it tries to hit the mineral line, he'll be in vision range,
or
exactly.
Detection
range of the Spore Crawler, which means the queens can get a couple volleys off. So those weak Banshees you not want to lose. He sniped off 4 drones, 5 drones so far, so not the end of the world. Lair is done, so basically just waiting now to see an Overseer accompany this force so that he can continue to track down those Banshees.
Still, he's on 66 drones currently. He's getting all of his extractors, I believe, as well. Yeah, extractor number 5 and 6 going down. That is extractor 5 and 6, right? Okay, so.
Yeah, he's just taking out the rest of his gases now as this lair is done. Very curious to see when he'll go into a Spire. These Banshees actually being microed pretty well. He's getting a few more drone kills over here at the 3rd base.
And that goes back to you asking for an Overseer. I think if he would have had an Overseer on top of those Banshees, then he could have repositioned his queens, and then he wouldn't have lost those 4 or 5 drones there. But then we are just nitpicking. 4 or 5 drones is probably not going to change the outcome of this game.
I mean, when you're playing versus Polt, though, I mean, you don't want to give up anything if you can help it.
That's true.
The Armory starts actually a little bit late for Polt, but he's got that big setup that we were talking about from the last game where he has the rest of his barracks coming in. He actually went to 2 factories much more quickly than in the previous map instead of getting his extra barracks up so fast.
Really cool little fact over there as well on the right bottom side of the map that Polt has at least reached the top 16 in every single WCS he played. And it even goes further than that, other than in WCS America 2013 Season 1, he's always made it to the round of 8 or further. That is the most insane stat.
Yeah, that's Polt's been a pretty consistent veteran among WCS.
You know, he's also won the most money within WCS of all 16 players over here.
He's a badass. He's going to try to make this push, clear up some creep. He's like, oh, no Mutalisks? Well, and then I can just pick up and boost away after denying your creep spread.
No, look at Polt's supply.
Oh, that mine just got a nice chunk of lings, too.
It's pretty damn high already. I'm a little bit worried for FireCake. Like, this is a significant supply difference.
I think FireCake should have started that infestation pit faster if he wanted to play Swarm Host, because he's opened a very large window for Polt to get some damage in.
And look how many resources he's banking there. He's 980 minerals, 1,000 minerals in the bank, 700 gas as well. He's getting a bunch of banelings now, but I'm actually starting to get a little bit worried. Look at the supply. The supply is just like exploding for Polt. FireCake may have slightly overdone it with investing into economy and nothing but economy. Those remaining Hellions have morphed into Hellbats over here as well. I think it's going to be very hard for FireCake to get good engagements over here, Nate.
This is going to be very tricky indeed. He has 22 Banelings versus 50 Marines, so while being dropped simultaneously in his main base, he has to handle all of this. The Roaches and Queens are going to try to deal with the drop, but they're actually getting knocked down. These Marauders are putting themselves right in front of the Widow Mine, so anything that tries to hit them is going to get smacked back, and the Lings are trying to bait the Widow Mine shots onto the Marines, but not really pulling too many over.
Well, maybe one of them triggered over there, but other than that, Polt is handling this very well, very cautious so far. A lot of Banelings already detonated. FireCake could have saved the Queen in the main base as well. He didn't do that. He's making 4 Swarmos now. If he can get those out, then he's going to be able to push this back. Of course, a lot of Zerglings still on the way as well, but still a lot of gas in the bank for FireCake. I just don't understand, why does he take all the gas if he doesn't use it?
I mean, Polt, he set himself up so well with so many Widow Mines for him to fall back onto, and while the Swarmhosts are coming out, as you said, Roddy, he does want to get all of them positioned together so that he can actually get the waves to come out in unison, which is the best way to actually push back a big army like this.
Yep, well, a couple of Locusts will start working on these Marauders, and that really does help, or even trigger a couple of those mines going off. Polt realizing as well, he's like, okay,
don't want to run into that. There's so many mines.
One of those mines doing a lot of friendly fire.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what the Locusts
tricky.
are definitely good for, though. Like, it's very easy to actually get all these mines to shoot at your Locusts. Polt, again, with that pretty late 4th command center. It is on the way, but it's late.
Yeah, but the way that his creep spread has been denied, like FireCake is going to, this is going to have to be one of the longest games ever if he wants to take this, because he doesn't have that 4th base, and the Marines and Marauders pull back again. He's like, oh, Banelings? Well, let me just step off creep. No worries here. Now the Locust
Polt
can
has to be a
start
tiny
take out
bit
more mine
careful, though,
shots.
because I feel like in the last minute, Polt has not done anything other than losing units.
Yeah, well, he did get the 4th command center up back home. He started up with his Thor production, even though we won't see Mutalisks at all. These Banelings not really connecting.
Really good pickup.
Yeah, great medevac control. He's really abusing the fact that FireCake just isn't, he didn't build Spire this game.
Nope.
He has no good anti-air aside from Queens, which the Bio can handle pretty easily as well. He's put himself in a very difficult position to deal with these drops.
The only thing that's damaging the medevacs is the Widow Mine so far.
Yeah.
All of these units being picked up, I do think that the Locusts have seen it. I love how he's bringing an Overseer forward immediately so he can actually pick off a bunch of these mines. He's getting 5-6 mines over here. That's kind of nice. He also knows about this army that's being picked up to medevacs. He still has an Overlord over there as well. Does FireCake have units in position? We can see. Oh,
he's
wow.
got a very good setup, actually.
I wouldn't do this if I was Polt. I would not do this.
He doesn't see it all, unless he's not going to drop that Thor onto the Banelings.
Polt.
And nope. He's going to have to back it up.
That makes sense. No.
Oh, he's really trying to force his way. He's going to try to run some Marines into that 3rd base. At the same time, he's going to try to drop. Oh, like this, he puts the Thor to try to block like a force field, but takes some hits from that Spore Crawler, and the Marines still going to be denied. That Thor barely escaping, and the Swarmhosts are actually defending the 3rd base of FireCake quite nicely.
Like a force field, isn't it?
Yeah, like a force field, man. Just blocking stuff. Just a big old piece of mech. And he gets this nice drop position. The Zerglings will not be able to get on top of this. The Spore Crawler's doing well. Okay, Banelings get 1 hit, but you can see a lot of the Marines still escape. Killing the Thor is nice, though.
FireCake is getting a spy now. He still has a lot of money in the bank as well. I almost feel that he's not sweating it too much, despite the fact he has a lot of Queens over here. They're low, they're high on energy, but low on HP right now.
That Locust wave was actually sent in the completely wrong direction. He runs up and snipes the Swarm Host, or 2 of these Banelings are going to show up and
really
just picks up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that's right, you don't have Mutalisks.
Pick-offs and pick-offs over there by Polt, both done excellently. He's going to be dropping a couple of these units in the main base. Has to be a little bit careful with that. He's going to end up losing his store, and he would have ended up losing a bunch of these Marines. But he's so active. These were still like the old drop with the Tor that was dropped there like a force field.
And I mean, if he ever kills those spores too, there's still the Banshees that have been hiding in the top left this whole entire game.
There are Corruptors on the way right now, so that's something for FireCake to finally deal with Medivacs that are just idling behind his bases.
But Polt's
that's,
on
of course,
5 bases now, and you even as good as Swarm Hosts are, like he's really made this hard on himself. He scans and targets the Swarm Hosts with the Widow Mines.
How often does it happen? Widow Mines is running forward. How is Swarm Host throwing down a scan and actually shooting at the Swarm Host? He's picking them off. Polt is maxed out during all this. He's dropping in the natural. He's knocking on the door at the front.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job. The Corruptors finally pick off the drops in the top right, but FireCake has been reduced to a measly 7 Swarm Hosts. Infestors and more Banelings are coming out, but FireCake, I don't think he can max off of the resources that are left in his 3 bases.
Nope. Oh, God. Miss Relic Swarm Hosts over there as well. That's the last thing that he currently needs. Polt is relentless with his aggression. Like, this started as a very quick, small push.
I love the Widow Mines running up to snipe the Swarm Host. Like, that's just adorable. He drops the meals. Polt's like, get out of my game. Polt, not known for his mana meals by any means, as another big wave pushes out for FireCake, and we saw how long FireCake waited the last game. He might wait a little longer for this one now.
Yep, Proxy Spire it is. Surrounded by Spine Crawlers and Spores.
Defend the Spore, the Spire with your life.
They want to absorb the bailing shots.
Block the ramp. There, throw some Infested Terrans. He's going to move in with the Corruptors to get the rest of these Medivacs, but I don't think he has enough to actually kill these forces off, as the very few Marines that are there scatter almost instantly, and FireCake drops below 80 supply now. I don't think there's anything else he can do.
Yeah, like you said, there are just not a whole lot of resources left. Once again, a couple of Swarm Hosts, they spawn at a very unfortunate moment. Will get picked off immediately, and Polt wins the first series in Group C pretty convincingly with a 2-0 over FireCake.
And not too shabby by Polt, who kind of just played straight up Terran versus Zerg. And I mean, the ways that FireCake arranged his army, and I honestly didn't expect him to throw Swarm Hosts into his play versus Bio, especially on Catalina. But Polt just realized, like, okay, I can still use the Widow Mines, but I don't want to keep them away, right? I have to be a bit more aggressive and just throw them in between the Locust waves. And that was a pretty cute way of using them. But it was more so about the drop play, just abusing the fact that there were no Mutalisks at all. He was able to be absurdly cost-effective by keeping all the Medivacs alive.
Yeah, it's funny how he was more annoying with Medivac drops on Vaani Research than he was on Catalina, which normally, it would be the other way around. But these Medivacs, they just did not die. Polt kept them alive over and over again. And what started off as the very first push never stopped. Relentless aggression from Polt. Entertaining series, I'd say, Nate. Let's go ahead and hear from the man himself, who's on stage with Sue.
Thank you very much, Rotterdam. Congratulations, Polt, on your victory over FireCake. It was a pretty convincing 2-0 over our last French representative here in the WCS Round of 16. Are you sorry at all when you heard the crowd cheering for him so hard before this match?
Well, I'm not sorry at all. I mean, well, first, he still has a chance. He can advance for the second of the group. And second, I mean, well, maybe their FireCake's fan is French, but they watch this game and they know who I am and how I played. So I made them to be my fan. That's what matters.
Well spoken by Captain America. Now, Polt, you are the only WCS champion here. In fact, you're a 2-time WCS champion, but that was back in 2013, and arguably those WCSs you won were harder than the one you're in right now. So does that kind of give you more pressure to do better here, since this is supposed to be easier?
Well, yeah, I know people can say this can be easier, but to be honest, there are so many good players. I mean, like in 2013, I won WCS 2 times, and at the second winning, Season 3, I beat 7 Korean players to win the whole tournament. But, well, here, at most 2 or 3, that's the most. So, yeah, it can be easier, but I mean, from when it's compared to 2013, foreigners are much better right now. I mean, like the first over Snoot and Bunny and other players getting much better, and they are doing as much same as Koreans do. So I don't think this is easy at all.
Well, speaking of Koreans and good foreigner players, you have one of each left in this group that you potentially have to face if you want to move on. How did you feel when you looked at the group when it came out, as it is the hardest group here?
Well, it is the hardest group because I'm in the group. but still, I'm pretty much confident, and I will advance in the first place tomorrow, and probably gonna be 3 more players and gonna win the whole tournament.
Super confident words by Polt. Thank you very much, and best of luck tomorrow. Though, according to your words, you won't even need it. We're gonna head back to the experts desk with Apollo.
Thank you very much, Smix, and a great interview with Polt. And he's feeling confident, he's looking great, and he played fantastic. Let's talk about that series for a little bit. What can we say about it? Would you say that was one-sided in Polt's favor?
I don't think it was one-sided. I think FireCake, he wanted to get up to his late game every single time. He was doing his absolute best, but Polt just constricted him onto 3-4 bases. In the first game, it was a really long game, and FireCake, when he got those swarm hosts out, he was doing a really good job of taking efficient engagements, but up until that point, he was taking a lot of pain. Polt took down all of the creep on the left side of the map. He's pushing down, doing a lot of damage. FireCake, in both of the games, never really got up to 4-base economy. In the first game, he had a 4th base up, but he never actually had drones on there. So he's like suffering, desperately trying to defend each game. And he really wanted to get those swarm hosts out, where he was strong. He was taking good engagements, but he didn't have the economy behind it.
You think so? Maybe if FireCake had a little bit of a stronger backbone to what he was looking to do, he could have really competed there with Polt.
Maybe if he delayed the swarm host a bit more, maybe he went up to them a bit fast, because he was basically trying to get swarm host out before he had the 4th base established. So maybe if he took it a bit slower with the economy and going for the big attack, then he could have done a bit more.
And you think that played out as you expected there, Todd?
Yeah, I think so. Like I thought, FireCake might put up a decent fight here, and he definitely did up to some extent. But in the end, I mean, Polt is just too damn good for him, and FireCake definitely, I feel like he still has a shot at advancing here in this group. So I'm gonna look forward to his next games, or next game tomorrow.
It's going to be fun to watch. James, final thoughts on that series before we pass it off?
I mean, we all expected Polt to end up advancing through in that game at least. I was impressed by how FireCake was able to hold on for the length period of the time that he actually did, but in the end, obviously, an outclassing from Polt came along there.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We're going to head over into the audience in a couple of seconds' time. We have a very special guest who's joining us here in France, and Smix has a couple of questions to ask his way. Guess who's on the other side of this next screen?
Thank you very much, Apollo. We do have a very special guest. We are fortunate enough to have the very one and only David Kim joining us. So, David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very good.
Well, I saw you in the audience watching that last series. It was between Polt and FireCake. Of course, Polt came out on top. I know the crowd here was cheering for FireCake, but who are you personally cheering for?
I was actually cheering for Polt because he's one of my favorite players. I just love the way he does his interviews. Just now too, I thought it was pretty awesome how he hyped up the crowd pretty well, even though most people were cheering for FireCake. So I'm pretty happy.
Well, it's not a common occurrence to see you coming out to these events. So being here in France, in Poitiers, what's it been like for you?
Oh, it's really cool because I'm actually a Canadian citizen, and I know a lot of Canadian people speak French. So France is like a second home to me, so it's really cool.
Now, last but not least, David, I know that you just said Polt is one of your favorite players, but in terms of looking at the tournament as a whole, are there any other players that you're rooting for, and who do you think will be the eventual champion?
Personally, I think I'm a little biased because I work on the game, so I usually cheer for anyone who is popular. So as long as someone popular wins, I think that's a win for everyone.
Sorry, are you saying you're just the bandwagoner?
I guess so.
All right, well, thank you very much, David. Guys, if you have any questions for David Kim, make sure to hashtag WCS on Twitter. We'll make sure to read all of your questions and ask him those questions later on in this tournament. So make sure to tweet at us and hashtag WCS. We'll be back after a quick interview with Hydra and Mana, so don't go anywhere.